Another day, another set of earnings to cover. The latest target for coverage here is Soma Gold, who reported their results alongside a slew of their peers on May 29th, which has caused some backlog on our end. But better late than never, right? All right, folks, let's dive in. Don't miss the Rural Symposium for Natural Resource Investing happening July 7th in Boca Raton. If you can't make it in person, that's not a problem. You can get your ticket to watch live online or on demand. We'll be there with the deep dive, so if you make it out to Boca, come say hi at our booth. If you want to sign up, click on the link in the description to get your pass. Soma Gold isn't an outlier compared to their peers. While they may be a smaller scale producer than some of the names we tend to cover here, the rising price of gold has treated them just the same. Revenue in the first quarter was up an impressive 44%, rising from $19.3 million in the first quarter of 2024 to $27.9 million in the first quarter of this year. The rise, of course, was caused by the massive jump in the price of gold. Soma in Q1 sold a total of 6,800 ounces of gold and 8,200 ounces of silver, as compared to 7,000 ounces of gold in Q1 last year, alongside 8,900 ounces of silver, which amounts to declines of 2.5% and 8% respectively year over year. This, of course, was more than offset by the jump in the average realized price of gold, which ballooned from $2,087 to $2,903 an ounce, a 39% improvement. Income from mine operations picked up a sizable chunk of this revenue gain, with the figure rising from $4.3 million to $9.8 million year over year. After operating expenses, Soma reported operating income of $7.3 million in the first quarter as compared to $2.6 million last year. And then after financing expenses and taxes, Soma posted a net income of $3.2 million or 3 cents per share, as compared to a net loss of $200,000 or 0 cents per share in the year ago period. EBITDA, meanwhile, doubled from $6 million to $12.4 million, while adjusted EBITDA improved from $6.3 million or 7 cents per share to $13.5 million or 15 cents per share. In terms of cash flow, net cash flows from operating activities grew from $350,000 to $7.7 million on a year-over-year basis. However, this was offset by cash used in investing activities growing from $1.6 million to $4.4 million. Financing activities also saw more cash consumed, going from a gain last year of $300,000 to cash consumption of $4.1 million, with that consumption including a $2.5 million payment on a loan, as well as $800,000 in expenditures related to the payments on equipment financing. Soma ended the first quarter with cash and equivalents of $7.5 million, which was down slightly from $7.8 million at the end of the year. However, working capital improved from $13.3 million to $16.7 million, which again demonstrates the overall impact of the rising gold environment. All right, let's get into the production data here. Soma in the first quarter mined a total of 38.9 thousand tons of ore, which was a slight improvement year over year from 38.3 thousand tons. Milling, however, came in slightly lower on a year-over-year basis, dropping to 37.2 thousand tons from 37.7. Grades were also down, falling from 6.8 to 6.25 grams per ton. However, some of that decline was made up in recovery growth, with recoveries moving from 87.6% to 87.9%. Total production in the first quarter amounted to 6,600 ounces of gold and 8,200 ounces of silver, both of which were down on a year-over-year basis, with gold production falling by 9% and silver production dropping 8%. In terms of costing, total cash costs rose from $11.92 to $12.61 an ounce on a year-over-year basis, a 6% increase, while all-in sustaining costs rose from $17.60 to $18.86 an ounce, a 7% rise. Soma Gold was also quick to highlight the average realized cash margin, which it bases on cash costs, with that margin figure rising from $8.94 to $16.42 an ounce, an improvement of 84% year over year, which is basically attributable to the rise in the price of gold more than anything. Okay, so typical of a small-scale producer, Soma doesn't provide hard guidance, but what they have provided here is a bit of an outlook on the development of their operations and some targets they are working to achieve this year in terms of production. As it currently stands, Soma is targeting production of 32 to 35,000 ounces of gold in 2025, And that's based on their investor deck. The bulk of that is expected to come from Cordero, which is targeting 25 to 30,000 ounces of production a year from 2025 through to 2030. That being said, Q1 produced roughly 6,600 ounces of gold. And when we inquired with management, about 17,000 ounces of gold is expected to be produced in the second half of this year. Whether that means that Q2 here is setting up to be a banger of a quarter remains to be seen. Soma's production has been a bit inconsistent quarter to quarter, which they're obviously aware of. And when we asked them about this, the response was that the company has had several week-long maintenance shutdowns at the mill in the past, alongside power inconsistencies. To counter this, diesel generators have been installed, and long lead parts have been brought on site to help reduce future downtime. On top of that, the El Lyman mill, at a capacity of 200 tons per day, is expected to come online here at the end of June, which will add further processing capability to the entire operation. The mill is expected to process a combination of ore from Cordero and Machuca, as well as small miners, which will all serve to boost production numbers. All right, so let's wrap it up. Q1 was a good quarter for Soma Gold. Well, they may not have bolstered their cash position, they were able to pay down $2.5 million in long-term debt, and overall, that's got to be a net positive. Our final question to management was whether they intend to make further lump sum payments on loans this year. The short answer was yes, with the size of those payments obviously being dependent on surplus cash. But that's exactly the right thing to do in this type of environment. Use those excess margins to strengthen the balance sheet, build up a bit of a nest egg for the tougher times, and then continue to expand your business. That's just a good way of being an operator, which seems to be the exact process Soma is abiding by. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. If there's stories you want us to cover, let me know in the comments section. We got lots of earnings videos on our channel. We got a few more to get through in this earnings season, but there's also other stories that we have cooking in the background for you guys. Do me a favor, if you enjoyed the content, hit that like button, subscribe, ring that notification bell. All right, everybody, thank you for watching.